Subscribe to my channel for more thrilling stories like this. It began with the tea. Each Sunday meal at my in-laws' home, Harold, my father-in-law, would always prepare his unique mixture just for me. Nobody else touched it, not even my spouse, David. It's specially for my beloved daughter-in-law, Harold would declare with that rehearsed grin that never truly lit up his gaze. I'm Sarah Mitchell, and half a year back, I aired by uncovering that my father-in-law had been siphoning funds from his old pharmacy network. I kept it secret from everyone, but he somehow realized I'd viewed those ancient files. The signs appeared slowly at first. Initially, just abdominal pains and lightheadedness following those Sunday meals. Then the mysterious marks on my skin, thinning hair, and eventually throwing up blood. You're pushing yourself too much, David would comment, seeing me doubled over in agony on our bathroom tiles. Perhaps you ought to step away from that bookkeeping position. But I understood the truth. I'd observed how Harold eyed me at those family gatherings. The way his stare tracked the teacup while I sipped. How he'd inquire with feigned worry if I felt okay. During the previous Sunday, I spotted him in the kitchen mixing a subtle white substance into my tea. It dissolved right away in the deep brew. When I challenged David on it, he lost his temper. "This is absurd," he yelled, striding back and forth in our sleeping quarters. "Dad's been an esteemed drug expert for 4 decades. He's in retirement now, for heaven's sake. What reason would he have to harm you?" I couldn't reveal the fiscal documents I'd found. The vast sums vanished, the bogus scripts, the funds traced to foreign holdings. Harold had crafted his image as the benevolent local druggist while methodically pilfering from his enterprise. The legal time limit hadn't passed, and he knew I possessed sufficient proof to demolish him. "I'm not making this up," I persisted, displaying to David the fresh discolorations spreading over my limbs. "These aren't typical. Something's amiss. You've constantly been envious of my bond with Dad," David retorted sharply. "From the moment we wed, you've attempted to drive a wedge between us. Now you're fabricating these wild claims." I gazed at my partner of 3 years, pondering how I'd overlooked this oversight previously. David had forever revered his dad, but this went beyond. This was deliberate denial. The following day, with David at his job, I took myself to the medical center. Dr. Jessica Wong had been my companion since university, and she heard me out without criticism as I detailed my doubts. "We'll conduct a complete toxin analysis," she stated, collecting samples of my blood. "But Sarah, if your words hold true, this amounts to attempted homicide." "I know," I murmured, observing my blood enter the containers. "But I require evidence. Nobody will trust me otherwise." Jessica gripped my hand. "I trust you. And these indicators match heavy metal toxicity. An individual with drug expertise would know precisely how to deliver it progressively." As we anticipated the outcomes, my health declined further. Harold had somehow learned of my hospital trip. Likely via his former health connections, and at the subsequent Sunday meal, he intensified his actions. "You're appearing faint, dear," he remarked, setting the teacup before me. "This unique mix will assist. It contains additional vitamins." I feigned sipping while observing him. His grip was firm, his expression assured. This was someone accustomed to portraying the affectionate paternal role while measuring lethal amounts that would end life gradually enough to seem organic. David stayed unaware, discussing his job as I secretly poured my cup into a houseplant. That evening, the plant's foliage darkened. When I presented David the withered plant the next day, he blamed me for contaminating it deliberately to make my case. "You require assistance," he declared, grabbing his device. "I'm contacting Dr. Stevens, that counselor Dad suggested." "No," I responded resolutely, taking my bag. "What I need is a spouse who has more faith in me than in a killer." "Dad is no killer," David bellowed, his complexion flushing. "Leave. Leave until you regain your reason." I was already moving toward the exit when my phone vibrated. It was Jessica. "Sarah," her tone was pressing. "The findings are here. Reach a secure spot. I'm notifying the authorities." As I sped from my residence, I noticed Harold's vehicle entering our drive. He likely arrived to provide another portion to complete his plan. But he wasn't aware of the test outcomes yet. Didn't realize his meticulously built image of honor was on the verge of crumbling. I arrived at Jessica's drive just as my phone flooded with texts from David. The lab had contacted him also as my urgent contact. Now he understood. Now all would understand. The toxin assessment was crushing in its specifics. Thallium, arsenic, and lead, all at concentrations that ought to have ended me weeks prior. Jessica clarified that my signs had been concealed by precisely measured portions given over time to imitate a genuine disease. This isn't merely attempted homicide, Detective Morris stated, examining the document in Jessica's front room. This is the deed of someone with vast drug know-how. He knew just how to sustain you while steadily ruining your internals. My phone continued vibrating. David's notes shifted from fury to skepticism to frantic pleas. Please return. We must discuss. This can't be factual. There has to be an error. Dad's weeping. He claims he cherishes you as his own child. I powered off my phone. The law enforcement search of Harold's residence uncovered his elaborate toxicity log concealed behind a fake wall in his office. Sheets of computations, notes on my reactions, and schedule estimates for what he termed my organic deterioration. He intended to end me gradually across 6 months, presenting it as an enigmatic ailment. They discovered the toxin cache in his storage area, neatly marked and timed. Various materials, each selected for its particular impacts. The detective noted it was among the most systematic attempted homicides she'd witnessed. Your father-in-law wasn't simply aiming to end you, Detective Morris clarified. He was running a kind of medical study, experimenting with various mixtures, recording your responses. He was handling you as a lab subject. David reached the law station as they processed Harold. I observed via a mirrored glass as my spouse faced his dad. Tell me it's false, David implored. Tell me they're mistaken. Harold's gentle facade at last broke. She was set to wreck it all, he growled, meddling in ancient files, believing she could obliterate my heritage. I created that pharmacy network from scratch. The funds I claimed were rightfully mine. David reeled back. Funds? You sought to end my wife over funds? She had to be removed, Harold stated icily. I couldn't permit some ledger keeper to undo 4 decades of meticulous effort. You would have progressed, discovered another, someone who understands to stay out of affairs. I entered the space then, confronting my intended slayer. Harold's gaze expanded at my sight. Maybe stunned, I remained breathing. The files are with the FBI already, I said softly. Everyone, the theft, the phony orders, the international funds. I dispatched them the day I uncovered them. I simply never informed you. Harold surged over the surface, but the officials held him back. His pretense of dignity fully destroyed as he yelled menaces and vulgarities. David observed in terror as his dad was hauled off, ranting about how he ought to have applied more potent amounts. In the corridor later, David couldn't look at me. I ought to have trusted you, he murmured. All those instances you claimed something was off. I picked him instead of you. You picked the dad you believed you possessed, I answered, not the person he truly is. The ensuing weeks passed in a haze of healthcare, law interviews, and court actions. The proof against Harold was irrefutable, not solely for my near murder, but for years of monetary offenses. The FBI located over $12 million stashed in diverse holdings. Additional sufferers emerged, others who had oddly perished after vowing to reveal Harold's plots through the years. The detective thought he'd been quieting dangers this manner for ages, employing his drug expertise to execute almost flawless killings. David sought separation, incapable of coping with his remorse and disgrace. I didn't contest it. Certain disloyalties can't be reversed. Certain faith can't be restored. He mailed me a note from his counseling meetings, attempting to clarify how he'd been controlled by his dad's lifelong deceptions. I was brought up to think he was flawless, David penned. Each time anyone charged him with misconduct, he'd depict them as envious, unstable mentally, or spiteful. I never grasped I was element of his control until I witnessed him attempt to end you. Jessica aided me in the healing journey, both bodily and mental. The toxin had inflicted lasting harm to my liver, but with care I would endure. You know what astonishes me? She remarked in one of our meetings. You never questioned yourself. Even when all others labeled you suspicious, you relied on your gut. Harold's court case exposed the complete range of his offenses. 5 dubious passings were connected to him, all individuals who had unearthed his monetary plots. He utilized his standing as a compassionate druggist to conceal his actions, aware that nobody would doubt the gentle elderly gentleman who offered gratis health guidance to his community. The magistrate condemned him to life without release. As they escorted him off, he glanced at me once more. The disguise was entirely absent now, exposing the scheming assassin below. I maintained his stare, declining to display dread. "You ought to have examined those files more thoroughly," I informed him. "I'm a bookkeeper. We always retain proofs." 1 year on, I was in a meeting space at the FBI base, recounting my tale to a group of forensic bookkeepers. My ordeal had turned into a model for spotting monetary deceit, and how office crimes can intensify to brutality. The figures always narrate a tale, I described, presenting them the deal trends I found. Harold's error was assuming that ending me would conceal his mysteries. But proof doesn't perish with its observers. The probe into Harold's history had revealed a path of sufferers covering 3 decades. Informants, workers, and even a reporter all had succumbed to apparently innate reasons after nearing too closely to his plots. The FBI named him the druggist toxin expert, and his matter became one of the most notable office crime probes in regional records. My liver operation had risen to 80%, superior to what medics anticipated. The enduring injury meant I couldn't consume spirits any longer, but it appeared a minor cost for living through it. Jessica had grown my nearest ally, and she'd assisted me launch an aid circle for those who endured monetary deceit and home mistreatment. The toughest aspect for sufferers I shared with my aid group is that these wrongdoers frequently don honorable masks. They're reliable society participants, adored kin roles. That's what renders them so perilous. David tried mending ties 6 months post-court. He'd undergone deep counseling, striving to comprehend how he'd been directed all his existence. "I've understood Dad dominated all," he expressed in our cafe encounter. "My profession selection, my bonds, even my union to you." He desired a family member in the enterprise to aid mask his paths. And when you endangered that scheme, he sought to remove you. "I'm profoundly regretful, Sarah." David's tone broke. "I ought to have shielded you." I regarded my former spouse, viewing him plainly for the initial occasion. He was another of Harold's casualties, directed from youth to facilitate his dad's offenses. But comprehension didn't imply pardon was feasible. "We can't return," I stated kindly. "Too much has occurred." He agreed, embracing this ultimate farewell. The drug network Harold had pilfered from proposed me a role as chief of the forensic bookkeeping unit. "We require someone who recognizes what to seek," the leader stated. "Someone who won't yield to stress." I agreed, establishing fresh safety steps and education initiatives. My ordeal had shown me that the most hazardous hunters often conceal behind decency and kin bonds. Harold's matter ignited probes into other enduring health deceit plots. My statement before the regional health panel resulted in tighter oversight of drug stocks and order trends. "You've converted your horror into beneficial shift," Jessica remarked in one of our routine meals. "That's the finest retribution." She was correct. Each time I assisted reveal another deceit. Each time I safeguarded possible casualties. I was overcoming Harold's heritage of direction and killing. The dreams about tainted tea slowly diminished. I still couldn't join kin meals or take beverages from others, but my counselor said that was a sensible adjustment, not suspicion. Last week, I got a note from Harold's jail. I identified his script on the cover, but didn't unseal it. Some utterances don't merit hearing anymore. Instead, I concentrated on constructing my fresh existence. I began courting again cautiously, this time noting how prospective mates handled waiters and managed disputes. I'd acquired to identify the alerts of direction and dominance. My tale featured in various real offense films, always emphasizing the monetary probe side, rather than dramatizing the brutality. I desired other bookkeepers and reviewers to grasp that their labor could truly preserve lives. "The figures don't deceive" became my slogan in education meetings. Rely on your gut when the proof indicates misconduct, regardless how esteemed the accused may be. Today, I'm en route to another FBI education meeting. My toxicity case has become mandatory study for forensic bookkeepers and deceit probes. Harold attempted to quiet me, but instead he amplified my voice beyond measure. The houseplant from that final Sunday meal rests on my work desk. Its deceased foliage kept in a transparent holder. It acts as a prompt that endurance sometimes involves trusting yourself when all others deem you mad. That fairness can arrive via ledgers as certainly as via tribunals. And each time I aid another informant hold firm, each time I shield another possible casualty, I recall that teacup and the toxin it contained. Harold tried to craft my conclusion, but instead he merely crafted his own. Some toxins are intended to end you. Others, if you endure them, render you robust enough to rescue others. I selected the latter.